Hello, you're listening to Sending the Experts with Georgina Durrant. This podcast is all about teaching and supporting children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities, SEND. My name is Georgina Durrant. I'm the host of this podcast brought to you by Twinkle SEND. As a former teacher in Senko myself, I wanted to create a platform to share some of the amazing things that my guests are doing to support learners with SEND. So whether you're listening on your commute, tuning in whilst walking your dog, or curled up on the sofa with a nice cup of coffee, thank you so much for joining us. In this episode, I am so excited to be joined by 2 times Paralympic gold medalist Danielle Brown MBE. Danielle Brown is an award-winning children's author. She's also a double Paralympic gold medalist in archery, 5-time world champion, and was world #1 for her entire career. She made history when she became the first disabled athlete to represent England and won gold in an able-bodied category at the Commonwealth Games. Wow. Hello.
Hi, it's great to be here.
That's fantastic. So let's start with the Paralympics, because I'm sure everyone will be really interested to find out about this in the run up to the Olympics as well. You won Paralympic gold in Beijing and London for archery, which is an incredible achievement. Congratulations. Can you share your most memorable moments from those games? What was it like?
I mean, they were just incredible experiences. And I think in many ways I probably enjoyed the Beijing one slightly more just
Oh,
because
wow.
no pressure,
Yeah.
I think London was great and better in so many ways, but I think from that enjoyment factor, there was just so much pressure on me to win.
Yeah.
So that was a lot harder. I think in Beijing, just the whole experience, the opening ceremony, walking into that stadium, 91,000 people cheering, it was just incredible. And I remember when it finished, and I thought, do you know what? There's no way we can do a better job. We're
Yeah.
holding this in the middle of a recession. China has the money, the people, the resources to throw at this. We can't beat it. And I honestly think we did. I
Yeah.
think London was amazing. And I think the most memorable bit there was when I won. Oh, can't tell you how relieved I was. No, it was amazing, but just it was the first time my family and friends had ever seen me compete internationally as well.
Wow.
So yeah, having them there in the crowd just made it really special.
Oh, I bet it did. I was really lucky. I actually went to the Paralympics in London in 2012 and watched it. I didn't get to see you, but I watched a couple of events with my friend. And even just as someone watching as a spectator, it was just, it felt amazing being in London, and it just felt so special, didn't it? It must have felt even more special actually competing in it and being, in our country.
Yeah, I know. I think it's one of those weird ones. When I first heard, I was like, oh, London, because
Yeah.
one of the great things about being an athlete, you get to travel around the world, you get to see new cultures and experience all that, which is just amazing. But well, London's not as exciting as it could be, but honestly, I think it was incredible. Just that whole atmosphere and the people that got behind it, it
Yeah.
really, really did make it special.
It was a big thing, wasn't it, having it in London? It really was. So, where did all your passion for sport come from then? Are you naturally sporty? Is your family sporty? Where did it all come from?
Yeah, so naturally sporty, and that was very much to do with my family. I think
Yeah.
I grew up in a beautiful, beautiful area near the Yorkshire Dales. So used to spend a lot of our weekends walking, cycling, camping. I really, really did get encouraged to try lots of different sports, which was brilliant.
Yeah.
And I have to say I wasn't very good at any of them.
No way.
Yeah, no, I think everyone always assumes they would be, but I wasn't. And I think that it's really important to share that because I
Yeah.
just enjoyed doing it, and that's why I did it. I did it to try and stay fit and healthy. I tried to do it to see if I could get better, but also just the social side and the friends that I made through it was really incredible. So yeah, that I think
That's so interesting though that you said that you weren't good at some of the sports, because you just imagine anyone who's in like the Olympics and the Paralympics, you imagine them just be very, very good at sports in general. And I bet that's quite refreshing when you go into schools and you talk to children, for them to realize that you don't necessarily have to be good at all sports. You can just have a passion and enjoy them, and then there'll be particular ones that you're really good at.
Yeah, and I think that's what I love, particularly with young people, talking to them about is there is a sport for everybody, and you do
Yeah.
get some kids going, oh, I don't like sport, you know, it's not for me. And it's like, it absolutely is. You've just not found the right one, because there are so many different sports out there, but also so many different ways you can engage with it. And
Yeah.
I think we typically just see the usual sports, and you kind of force down that competitive route, or the match route, or whatever it is. But it just has so much variety, which I
Yeah.
think is really
That's
incredible.
such a good point. And then you do almost, children start to label themselves, don't they, as not being sporty or being sporty, rather than, like you say, keeping on trying and finding a sport that they're interested in.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
That's such a good point. So your sport is archery. Like, how did you find archery? Like, that's like, like, it's not one of the usual ones. Did you, and yeah, how did you find it? Why your passion for archery?
Yeah, so it is unusual. I mean, growing up, I didn't realize it actually existed outside of medieval history or fairy story,
Yeah.
and it certainly wasn't something I got to try at school. But it effectively came around when I became disabled.
Hmm.
So I've got something called complex regional pain syndrome in both my feet,
Yeah.
which is chronic pain. It's a neurological condition. And that meant that I couldn't run, and I was really struggling to walk. And I found
Yeah.
it really hard trying to find a sport. You know,
Yeah.
I'd had that really sporty upbringing.
Mm.
My school weren't particularly helpful. So instead of PE, I spent 2 hours a week sat in the school library.
Oh, bless you. That's not fair.
Yeah, which, considering PE have been my favorite lesson. Yeah,
Gosh.
I was really academic, but I loved PE. I just it was just nice to, instead of being stuck in the classroom, just to
Yeah.
spend a bit of time running around and burning off a bit of energy.
Yeah, everyone needs that, don't they? Regardless, everyone needs something like that to, yeah, and that's not inclusion, having you sat separately.
Oh, no, exactly. So I went from doing like literally every single after school club to just not doing
Oh
sport at
gosh.
all. And that was really hard. And my parents were brilliant. So they tried lots of different things. And for example, we used to do, like I said, a lot of hiking. We'd go to the Lake District quite a lot. So instead of walking up the mountains, my mum and dad bought this big canoe. So we'd go canoeing
Oh
on the lake.
wow.
So they did try, but I just felt sort of in the day to day,
Yeah.
I couldn't access sport. I didn't know about Paralympic sport. At the time, there wasn't as much information about it. So somebody on the school bus did archery, and I was like, "Hey, you kind of stood there. You're not running around. You're not
Yeah.
walking far. Can I do that?" And I was a little bit nervous asking, thinking, is it going to be somebody else saying no? But no,
Yeah.
she's yeah, why not? And so I joined my 15th birthday. My dad and I did a beginner's course at a club, and I was
Brilliant.
still really bad at it. But yeah, it was just so much fun. I was back outside. I was back doing sport.
Brilliant. Then how did you then get into the Paralympics from there then?
Yeah, so I got into the Paralympics 5 years later, so that's quite a quick
Yeah.
rise. And ultimately it came down because I practiced a lot.
Yeah.
For me, it was a way of coping with my pain. So when
Mhm.
I'm competing, when I'm shooting, I'm not concentrating on the pain that I'm in.
Yeah.
So, it's still there, but it's just not right at the forefront of my mind. So really good distraction
Yeah.
technique. So, and the idea was, if I was well enough to get through school, I was well enough to go to archery practice at the end of the day. And yeah, I have super supportive parents. So they take me to practice. They could see that I was improving. I had some brilliant coaches at the club who supported me,
Oh.
really looked after me. And 3 years later, I was on the GB team, and 5 years' time, competing in Beijing.
That's amazing. What an incredible story. Um, so I believe you had a difficult time. It wasn't all smooth sailing through the Paralympics. So the International Paralympic Committee changed the rules, is that right, about classification for the Paralympics, which meant that you could no longer compete. Can you tell us more about this and why it happened and how it made you feel and all of that? Because that must have been incredibly difficult. If you've got that success and you went to Beijing, you went to London, you had an amazing time, you found your sport that was helping you through a lot of things, and then yeah, that happened.
Yes, this is right at the end of my career. After London 2012, the International Paralympic Committee changed the rules. So every para athlete has to be classified to determine whether their disability is severe enough.
Right.
you know, it is a bit of a strange process. You know, we do need to draw a line somewhere.
Yeah.
And it is quite tough because you are categorizing people,
Yeah.
and you know, you're trying to make the playing field fair. But I think at the time, athletes didn't really understand the classification process, you know,
Yeah.
don't really understand how it works. And then after London, it really became a viable financial product. You know, people were paying attention. I think Channel 4 did a brilliant job in terms of promoting it, which
Yeah.
is amazing. And all of a sudden, it had this massive platform, which is brilliant. And you know, and it is amazing to see how quickly it has grown in the last decade. But so what I think they did was they tried to clarify the rules.
Yeah.
Athletes don't understand it. How are viewers at home possibly going to understand it?
Yeah.
They tidied it up a bit, and in doing so, they've got rid of some invisible conditions. So
Good.
yeah, people with my condition are no longer allowed to compete, and a few others. So I think in some ways, London 2012 broke down many barriers and many walls, but it also put some others up.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't agree with the new rules. Like I'm don't think I would go back if they change them.
Yeah.
I just feel that as a young person, the benefit that it gave me, you know,
Yeah.
my confidence, the skills that I learned through sport, it helped me so much. And I just think it's absolutely heartbreaking that other young people with invisible conditions just don't get that opportunity
Yeah.
now. So yeah, it is something I'm really happy to be vocal about. But yeah, experiencing it was tough.
I bet.
Yeah, I went through a complete identity crisis. You know, you're an elite athlete, then overnight you're not. I'm a
Gosh, yeah. Like,
disabled person who wasn't disabled enough.
yeah.
So
That must have been incredibly difficult.
yeah, that bit was really hard. And then the fact that, you know, it is a career, or more than that, it's a vocation. It's something that, you know, you don't do it 9 till 5. You don't get to switch off when you go home. It's like every decision you make, what you eat, when you go to bed, how often you see your friends, every decision's around your sport, and you do it because you're passionate about it.
Yeah.
And I'd lost that. So it was absolutely heartbreaking. And then you just think absolutely terrifying as well, because what do I do now? I've got no
Yeah.
plan. My plan was to go to Rio. I've been sort of thrown off that program now. I've got no source of funding. I've got a mortgage to
Oh
pay, I've got bills
gosh.
to pay. What do I do? How do I do it? So yeah, it was really, really hard just trying to figure out who I was away from the sport.
Yeah, and like you say, it's your
Yeah.
career and your mortgage. I thought of it from like an identity point of view, I suppose, but I hadn't really naively hadn't really thought about it's your job, it's your career, it's how you pay your mortgage, it's all of that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you're going through all of that, and then you're like, how do I actually pay for all of that? Like, what
Yeah.
I don't know how. And then the thought of getting into a business, because I'd not got experience, you know, I was very good at shooting bows and arrows, and I
Yeah.
had a law degree as well, but I got no experience. The thought of going to the bottom of a company and try to work my way up after I've been world number one for like the last 8 years, I just
Yeah.
mentally I couldn't hack that to
Yeah.
start with.
What did you do then? What was the next step?
So I decided to set my own business up, and speaking and training primarily in the first instance. You know, as an athlete, I'd learned a lot of transferable skills,
Yeah.
particularly around confidence, resilience, goal setting, all that kind of thing. So I yeah, I thought these are really useful skills, and
Yeah.
nobody taught me them. Like people kept telling me, "Oh, you need to be resilient, you need to be confident," but nobody shows you how. It's like
Yeah.
it's terrible advice, isn't it? So I thought, well, actually, I've spent the last few years actually practicing these, working on them, researching them. That stuff can really help others. So yeah, I set up this business, and it's absolutely crazy. I drive to the other end of the country, and I get so
Mm.
excited when I got a small win, you know, or somebody believed in me and somebody bought into
Yeah.
me. And yeah, it was really, really hard to sort of get off the ground to start with, but really, really fun, really enjoyable.
Yeah, and there's sort of the irony that you're talking about resilience, and by doing that and creating your own business on the back of it, you are being resilient.
Yeah.
which is amazing. So our listeners are mainly teachers of children who've got special education needs and disabilities. What advice would you have to them for like making school sports more and PE more inclusive? Is there anything, obviously not putting someone in a corridor and excluding them from PE, but I don't think that happens hopefully anymore. But do you have any advice on what they can be doing to make their PE more inclusive, or what you would have liked when you were younger?
Yeah, so I think sport can be incredibly inclusive, and I think in some ways, obviously, the Paralympics gets pinned up as that pinnacle of inclusion. I
Yeah,
think it's actually quite exclusive.
yeah,
Not everybody wants to be a Paralympian, and that is okay. And I think that it is sort of disability only sport, and because I've had the benefit of being in a sport, archery is very inclusive. We
yeah,
don't have disability clubs in the UK. You just at a club, and I really benefited from that. As a person with a disability, I did struggle, as I said, with a lot with my confidence and things like that. But being in a club with other people where you're just another athlete, you're just another
yeah,
participant, that helped me so much. So this is what just using that story to really sort of share with people that we can make sports accessible and inclusive, and it doesn't have to be Paralympic sports. We
yes,
can find ways to break it down. And all it often takes is just a little bit of creativity. So, I go see different coaches and whatnot, and I used to have this weird lean in my technique, and so many people have put it down to, oh, that's your disability, until one person said, well, what happens if you lean this way before you actually start pulling your bow back? And there I am stood up straight.
um,
Yeah, so it just takes that just little bit of thinking out the box, like how do we make this accessible so everybody can enjoy, everybody can play. And of course some sports are more accessible than others.
yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we can't find ways to level that playing field across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really good advice. And I suppose as well, like you said earlier in the podcast, letting children try a variety of different sports as well would be a good idea, wouldn't it, in PEs? And I think they're quite good at this now in schools. But yeah, making sure it's maybe even letting children have a go at archery or some that you wouldn't normally think of to do in PE, but some like different sports so they can find the ones that they're good at and they're not just pigeonholing themselves as not sporty because they don't like football or they don't like running, but trying out lots of different ones.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And also I think it's really good for kids to try some of the more disability focused sports. Like
Yeah,
again, really easy things like sitting volleyball, just getting that different perspective, I think
yeah.
everybody learn and grow and just create more empathy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point. And hopefully, with the run up to the games, there's going to be more schools trying different things out and trying different sports out, which would be really exciting. What about your advice for children then? Because you are quite inspiring and you're good at helping people with their resilience and that side of things. What advice would you have for children and young people with special education needs and disabilities who want to pursue sports but are struggling to find their one?
That's a really good question. I think it just is about finding that passion and understanding. You might not know what exactly it is, but you do know some of your likes and dislikes, so we
Yeah,
can work through that. Like, for example, I absolutely I was in an individual sport and I loved that. Like team sports I could do, but I hated it when my team let me down or I let them down.
I
I
love
just didn't
it.
like that. I didn't like that. So, but that's fine. So
Yeah,
individual sports. So just understanding those can help narrow down all the options.
yeah.
Um, and if you don't like something about sport, what exactly is it you don't like about it? Was it a bad experience with a coach or
Mm,
teammates, or what was it that put you off? But I think particularly with young people, I'd say with girls as well, and different underrepresented groups as well as disability, that sometimes there is that like fear factor of trying something new, and
yeah,
you're a bit unsure. And I think it's just a case of going there and enjoying it, trying something new, getting out of that comfort zone, but
yeah.
not sort of going there to be perfect. It's just to go there and just have a cool experience and have some fun.
Yeah, because you said when you started doing archery that you initially you weren't good at it, and that's really interesting.
Yeah, no, I couldn't hit the target to save my life to start with. So, yeah.
Yeah, it just goes to show, just go and have fun and enjoy it. And I suppose that's what sport's all about, isn't it? It's about having fun and enjoying it and being fit and healthy and just, yeah, doing the best you can.
Yeah, and ultimately, if you are going to take it to the next level, you need to be passionate about it, because if you're not, there's absolutely zero way you're going to stick with it, because it is fun, it is exciting, but my goodness, there are so many challenges, so many tricky bits that you've got to push through and you've got to fight through. And if you just don't care about it enough, you're just not going to want to do that.
Yeah, yeah, such a good point. And I liked what you said about like different looking at the reason why you don't like it because I know for some children like with swimming, some children love swimming and then others hate it. And it's often they just don't get on with their instructor or the way they're being taught. And just changing a simple thing like that can make a huge difference, can't it, to how much you enjoy a sport. So it's not just dismissing it straight away and thinking, right, I'm not into swimming because I didn't have a good first lesson. It's like giving it a little bit more time, perhaps trying out different ways of doing it and seeing if yeah, if it's better that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as well as being an athlete, you're also and having your own business. I'm not sure how you fit all this in, Danielle, but you're also a published children's author, very successful published children's author as well. Can you tell us about your books?
Yes, yeah. So I write non-fiction books for children. I've had I've had a few out now, and I absolutely love doing it. You know, again, sort of really passionate about writing, and found my voice in that area. So two of my more recent ones, I've got Run Like a Girl, which features stories of 50 female athletes from all over the world. A Girls Rule, which is 50 female leaders, so women that have used their voices and their actions to inspire and drive change. And the reason I sort of wrote those, well, particularly the Run Like a Girl one, was growing up, I didn't believe, or I didn't even know I could have a career in sport.
Yeah.
So I think at the time I could name two
Mm.
female tennis players, and that was it. So just because I didn't see people succeeding, thriving, or even failing, I just thought, well, I didn't even think, I just didn't even know that that was a choice, that was an option. So I never thought, I never chose sport as a future career. And then when I became disabled, like good luck finding a disabled role model.
Yeah.
I think I could name Stephen Hawking's, and that was it.
Yeah.
And you know, super inspiring guy, but science wasn't really my thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I really, really struggled with that. And then I think sort of as you get a bit older with the disability, I think the underrepresentation, but the misrepresentation is really sort of not helpful. So what I've done by curating these stories is providing role models so that they are visible, that
Yeah.
people can see them, and they come from all different backgrounds, all different, you know, ability groups and things like that. But it shows how they achieve success. So it's not saying this is what you need to do to be successful, because
Yeah.
we're all different. It's just sort of learning, and people can then take bits and pieces from here and there and go, actually, this works for me. This really resonates with me. I could try that out. I could test that out. But I just think that learning through role models is just such an important way to work, and
Yeah.
I think it's something particularly for underrepresented groups that hasn't been available
Yeah.
until more recently.
Oh, I love that. That's brilliant. And like you say, yeah, you need to be able to see yourself in these sports, don't you? You need to be able to see people like yourself doing it. That's, yes, that book sort of helps that. I imagine lots of schools listening will be thinking we need to get these books on their list in the run up, well, in particular the run up to the games in the summer, but also in general to just help, yeah, encourage more children to enjoy sport and see themselves in sport, which is fantastic. So before we finish, we'll put some. I'll share some links to Twinkle as well in the show notes below. So if anyone who's listening, if you're watching on YouTube, the links will be down here, and if you're listening as well, you can scroll down on your phone or on your computer and you can see the links. But are there any links you'd like us to put on there? Presumably, we should put links to your books as well, Danielle.
Oh yeah, that would be amazing. And you know, I'm always happy to answer any questions as well. So if you want to reach out to me via my website, please do so.
Brilliant. Oh, that's really fantastic. And do you go into schools as well? Is that right? Schools can book you if they wanted to?
Yes, yes, I do quite a lot of work with schools from both primary and secondary. So from the inspiring speech to I do all sorts, from like exam prep and how to cope with pressure and all those kind of things.
Fantastic. Oh, well, thank you so much. You've been such a brilliant guest. Really appreciated your time.
Thank you.
What an inspirational guest. Do go and have a look at her books and website. And we've got plenty of resources linked to this episode all about the summer games that are coming up, so do go and have a look at those on our website. The links for those are below. If you're on your phone, you can scroll down and see them. If you're on YouTube, you can see them in the show notes below. And thanks again for listening and watching Send in the Experts with me, Georgina Durrant. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, and we'll see you next time.